Okay, right, so we're back again. Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you are new around here, or if you have actually come back after my 5-month hiatus, I'm VA Winter. I'm an indie author. I am not entirely sure what I am at this point. I'm definitely an indie author, and I am writing essays on Substack about literature and politics and how literature is political and exploring all the different ways literature is political. Link is down below, as is the link to my Instagram and everything else, which I'm attempting to post more frequently on now, Instagram and TikTok. And I've decided to come back to YouTube. And if I keep looking to the side, it's because I'm trying this thing where my MacBook is mirroring my iPhone. So I'm trying not to look at myself on my MacBook. At the beginning of this video, you saw a quote by Taylor Swift. I'm a Swiftie. If you don't like her music, that's fine, but I'm not going to have any conspiracy theories or arguments about this. So that quote at the beginning was taken from an interview she has just done with the New York Times about her songwriting. She's going into the Songwriting Hall of Fame this year. That's what the interview was for. I will leave it linked down below. I think it's found its way onto YouTube now, but if not, it is available just to watch for free on the New York Times website, so I'll leave it linked down below. I left YouTube because of various reasons. One of them was reaction to the last video that I posted, which I'm still trying to decide or understand why that impacted me, because I knew when I posted the video that it was likely going to find a specific audience, and I knew that that specific audience probably wouldn't like what I had to say. I suppose I didn't anticipate the pile-on. And by some people's standards, it wasn't really a pile-on. But I didn't anticipate just how shouted down I would feel. The video is no longer on my channel. That won't be going back up. It was about 2001: A Space Odyssey and the rampant misogyny in that book. And by extension, from what I understand of most other classic science fiction, the rampant misogyny in that genre, full stop. And different people react differently to it. But I think to deny it at that level and to come to the defense of a book and a genre that is rampantly misogynistic in 2026, I found it disappointing and difficult, because I think it would have been one thing if the response was, yeah, it kind of is misogynistic, but the sci-fi I actually really enjoyed. Okay, fine, but just basically telling me that I'm wrong. And then the comments did start to get a little bit nasty, which is when I took the video and everything else down as well. So that's one element of it, is feeling shouted down. And the thing is, there is no wrong. An opinion on literature cannot be wrong, and I'm going to say that. And anyone's opinion on any book cannot be wrong. And I had to remind myself of that several times. There's no wrong opinion. There might be unpopular opinions, but they're not wrong. So there's that. I don't particularly like editing these videos. I'm not going to lie. I don't like editing these videos. As soon as I make enough money, and potentially even before that, I'll just pay someone to edit them for me. Don't like it. And I think just the feeling of, and this is something I'm still struggling with to an extent, is I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time in my day to do everything I want to do. And I just felt like if something's got to go, it's going to be this. And for the last several months, for the most part, I've not been bothered about that decision at all, because there's also wrapped up in it, what if someone in my real life finds this? What if someone from my day job finds this? I don't want that. And that is a fear, that is an anxiety, that is a worry. So there are many reasons why I felt that YouTube was the correct thing to go if something was going to have to go. However, over the last few weeks, I started to feel gradually, and I've had this before when I've taken unscheduled breaks from YouTube, that I miss vlogging. I miss documenting what I'm doing. I miss documenting writing on my books. I miss documenting the difficulties of writing books and doing all the other stuff that I'm doing while working a full-time job and trying to maintain some level of health and sanity. I miss putting that out. I miss seeing that come together at the end of a week or a couple of weeks or however frequently I decide to vlog. That's the side of it that I miss. I don't miss the other stuff that I just mentioned, but I do miss that. And then this interview with Taylor Swift came out, and she talked in that interview, as is kind of hinted at the in that quote at the beginning of the video. She talked in that interview about creating art, letting it go out into the world, and then offered some perspective on dealing with the criticism that comes back from that. And I'd already been going down this kind of thought spiral rabbit hole because of my Substack. And then it's just sort of extended to YouTube and just art in general. Before we get into my thoughts about that, I just wanted to do a quick summary of what's been going on over the last 5 months, because obviously I disappeared. My intention was to post on Instagram stories, and I don't know what it is, it just never quite happened. But I have been working on book 2 of my series, so Fire Witch, which is the first book in the Fire Cycle. That came out last September, and I've been working on book 2 ever since. It's not particularly been a smooth process. There have been bumps along the way. It's taken far longer than I intended it to take, and far longer than it really should have taken, just because I've had lifing. So I think when I left off blogging, I was still on draft 2.5. Finished draft 2.5 early this year. I then did a read through, did another draft, and then it went off to a developmental editor. Those edits went off in the middle of February, was supposed to come back the middle of March, but lifed, and it came back a little bit later than that, which is fine because I was on jury service. I did mention this in the vlogs last year. I was supposed to do it last year. It got postponed to this March. I did it. I naively went into it with the expectation that I wouldn't get put on a trial, that I'd do a couple of days and then just get let go because they've got too many people. Did that happen? No, it did not. I got put on a trial. So that was 2 weeks just over of my life, which wasn't pleasant. Don't recommend. 0 out of 10 stars as an experience. I'm glad I got to see the inner working of the court. Like, if you want to find a silver lining, that was an interesting experience. But the actual trial itself, which isn't something I'm really going to talk about because I don't think I should, was not fun. We couldn't actually talk about it to anybody for the duration of the trial. We weren't allowed to discuss it with friends or family. So there was a lot of bottling up of feelings, and 1 or 2 elements of it did just touch on a couple of things that were a little bit close to the bone for me. It wasn't a pleasant case at all, but it's done. It's over. The box is ticked. Don't have to do it again, which is another silver lining. Normally, with jury service in the UK, if you get called up again within 2 years, you don't have to do it again within those 2 years. But after the 2 years, you do have to do it again. There were several people in my group that were on their second go around. So you can get called up again. But because of the nature of the case that I did, I don't. So that's good. That's at least positive. I got my edits back in the middle of that. And just because of that, I didn't actually get started on reading back through the draft and reading through the feedback properly until the beginning of April. So that kind of, it all got delayed. I have finished reading through, compiling sort of like action points. I'm currently working through a list of questions that need answering about the story, things that don't entirely make sense that I need to make sense, plot points that might need changing. I've restructured it. So I've done like moving scenes around and chapters around to improve the pacing, because that was a big part of the feedback, was the pacing was a bit off, or a lot off. So I'm learning about pacing this time around. And this is what I do love about the developmental editing process, is I learn. I'm being pushed to learn about story, and I'm being pushed to improve my storytelling, which is what we want. So I'm doing that. Character arc, goal, motivation, conflict, which I did learn about and then promptly forgot about, and now I'm having to go back and implement it, which is fine. Again, it's what the edit is for. So that's what I'm currently working on. A list of questions that I'm trying to answer and then implement into the re-outline. the draft 4 outline. It's probably a better way of putting that. That's going really slowly, partly because I keep not working on it. I'm procrastinating, which isn't particularly good. So that's where we're at with book 2, which does have a title, and you will know the title eventually. Anyone who, is actually still here after all this. I did have a change in role at my day job again, so that kind of upset things a little bit in February. While book 2 was with the editor, I did try going back to the outline for book 3 and sort of restructuring that and making that better. I got partway through the long outline for it, which is like a narrative outline for me, generally about 20,000 words. I got partway through that when jury service happened, and then I quit. And then once I'd got the feedback back for book 2, I thought, you know what, the niggling little feeling that I'd had with book 3, with the outline, as I was progressing through the outline, I had to sit down and admit to myself the niggling little feeling was correct, and it doesn't work. Because the frustrating thing for me is, with both of these editing processes so far, is the big things that have come back to me and being pointed out, the things that I kind of suspected were wrong anyway, but I was kind of didn't want to do the work to correct them. So I was kind of hoping that the editor would just come back and say, it's fine, actually, it's just you overthinking it. Reader, it's not me overthinking it. I know what's wrong most of the time. I just don't want to have to fix it. And obviously I've been working on Substack, and this has been, for the most part, really fun. And this will lead into sort of coming back around to what I was talking about at the beginning, with slightly switch in perspective, or at least a validation of my growing thoughts around the nature of this kind of thing. So Substack, it's slow, I'll be honest. The actual metrics, they're not great. But at the same time, several of the people that I follow on there that are like Substack experts say it's a really hard platform to grow on. There's not a lot of native search on there, which is a large part of the problem. Discoverability is not the best. Like on YouTube is a search engine. Provided you're putting out consistent, relatively okay content, it's relatively easy to grow, even if you grow slowly. It trickles, at least. And then you can obviously go viral, which don't actually recommend. Happened to me once a couple of years ago. Don't recommend. So it's really slow growth on Substack. It's not a search engine. It's very much designed with the idea that you bring your own audience, which when you don't have an audience is actually really difficult to do, surprisingly. The point of it for me at this point in time is to practice writing nonfiction, is to read the books. So that I'm still doing the pages of my TBR project over there, which is where I've got, I started out with fiction, which was 200 odd books, and then I made the decision to add in my non-fiction, which is behind me, because that also needs reading. So we've ended up with 400 odd books. I'd also missed some because I wasn't using a Kindle when I did my list. There were just some books that got missed when I moved everything over to Kobo, and so I found some more books on my Kindle because I now have a new Kindle. So the number has expanded because of that as well. So we're going to work our way through the list slowly. I'm using it as a learning experience mostly. I want to learn about literature and practice writing about books and practice my non-fiction writing and practice just getting that better. So I'm practicing, and that's where I'm looking at it, and I'm not looking at stats. Substack makes it really easy, or at least easier than YouTube, to not look at stats. This is where we're going with this in a minute. You can very easily post on Substack the same as on Instagram and TikTok without having to see your follower counts, without having to see the amount of people who liked your last post, without having to see the amount of people who viewed your last post. You're not confronted with those numbers the same way you are on YouTube, which is another reason I've really struggled with YouTube, is because every time you log on to YouTube Studio, the first thing you see is, this is how many people viewed your last video, this is how many people liked it, this is how it ranks in comparison to your last 10 videos. I don't want to know that information. If I want to know that information, I'll go look for it. I don't need to be confronted with it every time I log into YouTube Studio to answer a comment or to upload a video or make an edit on a video. So yeah, I'm working on Substack. It's a lot of reading, which I love doing. I don't have enough hours in a day. I'm constantly behind where I feel like I should be. but I'm enjoying getting through the books. And again, if you do want to see or have a look and read what I'm doing over there, it is linked down below. Coming back around to this Taylor Swift interview and the whole point of this and what I want to say. Most of the interview, if you're not a fan of Taylor Swift, is a bit irrelevant. It's about her songwriting. It references certain songs, certain albums, her process. I mean, it is interesting as a writer because I think some of the ways she works are applicable to novel writers as well, or poetry. Very applicable to poetry, probably. But a lot of it, if you're not a Taylor Swift fan, you probably won't be interested in. The bits that I found the most powerful was when she was talking just generally about being in the arts, which this is. Writing and publishing fiction definitely is. Writing and publishing on Substack is. Creating and publishing on YouTube is the arts. We're being creative when we're making these videos. We're being creative when we sit down and film them. We're being creative when we think of the idea for them. We're being creative when we put together a script. We're being creative when we edit the videos. We're being creative when we write a description for them. It's all part of the creative process, and it's so similar, really, to writing a book in a lot of ways. I'm looking down a little bit when I'm reading this because I've got my iPad down here with the actual quote on. Why are you reading your comments? You're inundating yourself with too much criticism that doesn't really have a focus. When I publish a book, which I've done one of, 2 if you count my short story, I don't look at the reviews. I don't know right now. It probably doesn't have any reviews, but I don't know whether Firewitch has any reviews or not because I haven't looked. I haven't looked on Goodreads, and I haven't looked on Amazon, and I haven't looked on any of the other platforms that it's on either. And I probably won't, because those reviews are not for me. They are not feedback for me. They are not helpful for me in any way. The book has been written. The book has been published. I'm not going to unpublish it and republish it based on some reviewer's opinions. Reviews are for other readers. They're to tell other readers maybe what the book description can't. They're to enhance the information available about the book for other readers. At the same time, it is a widely shared and a widely understood thing that authors don't generally tend to read their reviews. Reading your reviews is a recipe for overthinking, is a recipe for stopping writing. We focus on the negative. It's what our brains do. There can be 20 5-star glowing reviews saying your book is perfect, one 1-star review saying it's rubbish, why is this author bothering? And your brain will focus on that 1-star review and tell you you're rubbish, why are you bothering? Which is why most authors, as a rule, don't generally read their reviews, because it makes the creation process so much easier if you don't have that going on in your brain. Some people can, and it's fine, brilliant, wonderful for them. I'm not one of them. Most authors aren't. So why is it an expected thing that I create a video, I put a video out, and I have to have my comments open? Because when those comments started coming in on that video that I posted back in January, and the first 1 or 2, I was like, okay, fair enough, your opinion. And then they all started coming in being the same thing, and then they started getting unpleasant. I Googled, is it a really bad thing to turn your comments off on YouTube? And the answers that came up over and over again was, yeah, it is, because it hurts your engagement, which is a key metric that YouTube uses to decide whether it's going to push your videos out to other people. And people feel, apparently, that it's, what was one quote that I saw? Somebody on Reddit, that it's like, oh, you're not interested in my feedback. And I just sort of sat there and thought, well, no, I'm not actually. But why is that an expectation? Why is it an expectation that I have to be open to your feedback on this video? And it's the same on Substack. And this is kind of where this thought process started, was on Substack actually. I was thinking about turning the comments off on my pages of my TBR posts. And I've had some random comments on these YouTube videos. And if, you might land on 1 or 2 if you were to go back through previous vlogs, just odd comments that have no constructive criticism to offer, have no helpful feedback. They're just criticism. They're just, well, this is rubbish for whatever reason. No, you could try this to improve. Or have you tried that? Or maybe you should think about doing this instead. Just, that's crap. Why do I have to be confronted with that? Especially on YouTube, as I say, that sort of shoves it down your throat. Why? Why is it an expectation that when we put something out creatively on YouTube or on Substack, because it's the same on there, that there is an expectation that I have to have my comments open and I have to be open to feedback. Because again, on Reddit, as somebody pointed out, I've spent too much time on Reddit, as we can all tell. How did we manage in the days of television? How do you watch Netflix? There's no comment section on Netflix. The producers of Grey's Anatomy or Bridgerton aren't interested in their viewers' feedback. They've created the show, they've created the art they want to make, and they've put it out, and then people either like it or they don't, which is kind of what Taylor Swift says. Coming back to the quote at the beginning of the video, you have to hold tight to your perception of your art and your relationship with it, and then you just let it go. Hope you like it. If you don't now, hope you do in 5 years. And if you never do, then I was doing it for me all along. And that's the mindset. That's the mindset that I've had with Substack for the majority of the last 5 months. It's not for you, it's for me. My books are for me primarily. Obviously, they've got to make coherent sense to other people. That's why we hire editors and beta readers and things like that to make sure that the book actually makes sense and is, coherent and as objectively good as you can make it. But at the end of the day, the story is for me. This is why I self-publish, because the story is for me. It's my story. I don't want the story that an agent would want me to tell or an editor or a publisher would want me to tell. I want to tell the story I want to tell. I want to create the video I want to create. I want to write the article I want to write. And yes, it has to be coherent and it has to be readable and it has to make sense. And in the case of an article, you make an argument and your argument should be there and it should all make sense, which is what I'm currently working on. It's not to chase a trend or it's not to please anybody else. It's not to please the market. It's just, this is what I've created. I really like it. I'm really pleased with it. Hope you like it too. And I don't need your feedback at that point because the thing is already made. And if I want feedback on my YouTube videos, I will go ask somebody who's an expert in making videos to give me feedback and tell me how I can improve. And that's not to say that I want to close the comment section of every single thing that I make. It's to say that we have a right to do that when something is perhaps attracting the wrong kind of comments. There's also this thing which I've seen other creators express around this of everyone has a right to express their opinion and therefore I can't delete these comments. Prior to the incident in January, I very much had the attitude or the principle or the boundary of if these begin to attack me personally, my appearance, anything like that, they get deleted. They're just going to get deleted and I don't really care what rights you think you have. You don't have the right to come onto my channel and bully me or bully anybody else in the comments. However, as we'll discuss in a moment, that boundary has changed. So, back to why I'm back. The crux of the article and the real reason I came back, and this is the quote. Don't let this make you stop writing or make you edit yourself. Make art about this. Don't respond to trolls in your comments. That's not what we want from you. We want your art. Don't respond to trolls in your comments. Why are you in your comments? Why are you putting your focus there? Why? And as I say, she's primarily talking about songwriters. She's talking about advice she would give to songwriters coming up today. Because obviously when she began in 2006, this wasn't such a big thing. The point in this is that this applies to all artists. It applies to everybody, right? It coming back to the situation with book reviews. I do not look at my book reviews because I do not want it to stop me from writing. And because I know that if I went onto the sales page for Firewitch or the Goodreads page for Firewitch and I saw I had 21-star reviews, I mean, one can only hope this wouldn't happen, but you never know. I don't feel like it would be justified, but that could very much easily mean I just don't write again for the next decade. And I don't want that. I've got too many books to write. I've got too much stuff to learn about writing, through writing, to let someone else's opinion derail my life. And then I applied that to YouTube. I let someone else's opinions, coupled with my dislike of editing, coupled with my fear of being seen and my fear of somebody in my real life coming across this channel, coming across what I'm doing, coming across the fact that I publish books, I let those fears, all about other people, stop me from creating videos. And there is an element of, I don't want to have to edit these videos, but I do want to have them created. But I let other people's opinions, valid or not, shout me down. And my fears about what other people might think shout me down, make me edit myself. And I do edit myself. And this is something that I read on Substack. And if I can find the article, I will leave it linked below, because this kind of touched on this as well, is this idea of editing yourself, and how by editing yourself, you are holding yourself back, basically, which I think is something that I do. So, all that said, obviously I'm back on YouTube. I am going to be setting some boundaries going forward, both for YouTube and Substack. I think at the minute what I'm going to do, this is subject to change. Comments for my pages of my TBR posts will be off on Substack, and I'm going to put a disclaimer at the bottom, and the same with any videos that I do of this type, that says, thank you for reading. I hope you enjoyed reading it. I hope you've got an opinion about it. Please feel free to go and discuss that somewhere else. I might have a dedicated chat channel, maybe for paid subscribers eventually, when I get that far, which I will get that far. It's just going to take time. And as I said, the same goes for YouTube. If I decide to post anything opinionated on here, if I decide to post this, my video might even have comments turned off. I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. But if I do decide to make any videos from the articles that I post on Substack, comments will also be off on YouTube, because I'm not having that happen again. That statement probably gave you some opinions, because you then feel that your access to tell me what you think is curtailed. And it is. But that's not why. I'm not posting this video to hear other people's opinions on this. I'm posting this video to explain where I've been, why I'm coming back, why I left, and to share something that I think is valuable. What you choose to do with that is beyond the scope of this video. Comments, however, will be open on vlogs, because they are more conversational. I'm generally not sharing something controversial in a vlog. At the minute, all I intend to do on this channel is vlog. Do weekly, hopefully, vlogs. There might be some weeks I just don't have enough footage, and so I'll roll it over into the next week. Schedule might be sporadic, because I'm trying to do too much. And I know that. I'm trying to do a lot of things, and sometimes one thing has to just take priority over another. And I still have chronic migraines. I still have one or two other issues going on health-wise. That means that sometimes just I have rubbish weeks. Life happens. But having said that about comments being open on my vlogs, anything that I find upsetting, anything that is mildly or could be interpreted as insulting, bullying, any of the discriminatory words that you want to put into this context will be deleted. And I will not hesitate to turn comments off if... they never have on a vlog. Generally, people are pretty respectful on a vlog. It's generally only on certain videos that have just reached the wrong audience that I've had this problem. But at the same time, it has made me recognise the need for boundaries. Any comments that are not constructive, that are criticism but are not constructive, will also be deleted. This is my space, right? And I think I've seen other people try to enforce this, and sometimes it doesn't work and sometimes it does. This channel is my space. It is a place where I come to express myself creatively. I don't want to completely turn comments off, because I do enjoy getting comments on my vlogs. I do enjoy some of the conversations that I have with some of you, if any of you have come back in the comment section on my vlogs. I enjoy discussing aspects of writing and craft and process, and the books that I've read, or the books that you've read, or what's going on in your life versus what's going on in mine, your experience of something that I might have mentioned. That's fine. That's conversation. That's fine. I like that. What I don't like and won't stand for is being shouted down for an opinion. No one has yet. My books are not selling well enough for this to happen. But if at any point they do, consider this fair warning, and you tag me in a negative review on any social media platform, or you tag me in a review that has anything negative in it, you will get blocked. And if you are a reader account, this will probably never reach the right people, but just in case, and you follow me on social media, on TikTok or Instagram, and I don't follow you back, that is because I'm trying really hard to not follow accounts that are reviewing books, just in case you review my book. I don't want to see that. Not because your reviews are bad, but because I just don't want to see reviews of my work. But to conclude, coming back once more to that quote from the Taylor Swift interview that we opened the video with, best and really, for me, only sustainable way of doing this, and I think probably of just being anyone who puts out art in 2026, is to take Taylor Swift's advice, create it, release it and let it go. The story isn't yours anymore. And if you know which song that comes from, you get bonus points.